Warlocks! Everybody loves Warlocks. I've done multiple videos on them in the past, but some of those videos are outdated, so today we're going to revisit Eldritch Invocations. And we're going to use 2024 rules. Welcome to Pack Tactics, where 2024 Warlocks actually lost Shatter. That makes me really sad. Anyways, packs, they work a bit differently in 2024. In 2014, the Warlocks got to pick a Pact boon at level 3. Now they've turned into Invocations, which means you can pick multiple pacts. And Warlocks now get a total of 10 Invocations rather than 8. You get your first extra invocation right at level 1, which you could use to pick up a pact invocation immediately. The other extra invocation is at level 5. Sadly, Pact of the Talisman is not included in the reworks, which means there's no way to gain access to this feature at the moment. If you really want it, the DM has to homebrew it in. And also there's some invocations in the 2014 Player's Handbook that weren't reprinted. That means they're still accessible, but they're not really that good. There's a reason why they didn't reprint them. And then of course there's some extra invocations in Xanathars and Tashes that are still relevant. In this video, I'm going to mention all of them, or at least the relevant ones. Like in 2014, you can still replace one invocation every level, but your selection has to remain legal. There's also some invocations which you can pick multiple times. Now let's actually take a look at all of our options. I'm going to categorize it a bit, but it's mostly based on feeling. First, we're going to look at the invocations involving their cantrips. You know, their bread and butter stuff. Let's start with my favorite, Repelling Blast. Previously, it was only applicable to Eldritch Blast, hence the name. But now it works with any Warlock cantrip that deals damage via an attack roll. Eldritch Blast is still the best pick because of the scaling. You know, as soon as you hit level 5, that means you shoot 2 beams. And that can potentially push an enemy 20 feet instead of 10 feet. One big downside to this invocation, which is new, is it doesn't work against huge or large enemies. Which is a shame because they're usually the toughest enemies you'll find. Still though, it will be useful throughout your entire career anyways. Especially if you and the party take advantage of battlefield control. For example, pushing someone into web or spike growth, sleet storm, or even pushing somebody into conjure animals. There is tons and tons and tons of examples. If you play with somebody who values control, they're gonna immediately tell you all about it. Because you're really good at making their spells like 2 times better with just some cantrips. This is a 10 out of 10 invocation. And these are 10 out of 10 dice! The Kobold and Gator dice! They see us rolling. We're critting. But seriously, these are transparent resin with our simulacrums inside. We'll help you optimize and make sure your Eldritch Blasts land consistently while rolling around. We've been playing a lot of Elden Ring lately, and we've mastered the art of rolling. We've also got trays, little bags, and 2 adventures that come with these dice. Yup, and there's gonna be giant dice versions of us too. Check out the Kickstarter, we need like 500 more followers, and then we'll get things in gear. If you wish to support us directly, then this is the perfect way to do it. Link in the description. Back to the video. Now let's talk about its partner in crime, Agonizing Blast. It's an auto pick. It increases the damage of one of your cantrips, though I have to say, the new version puzzled me. We might start some fights in the comments. I don't think anyone agrees which cantrips are applicable for this. I'm gonna mention what I think personally. You might disagree with me, which is fine. There is no clear answer in any of the books. There's no sage advice, Jeremy Crawford hasn't said anything. Right now it's a mess. Let's tackle it this way. What is a Warlock cantrip? That's pretty easy. Something you pick through your Pact magic feature. Though there are also other features that give you cantrips that count as Warlock spells. So basically anything could be a Warlock cantrip given that we pick it up through one of these 2 options. Now, when does a Warlock spell deal damage? In my opinion, we can answer that with the following question. Is damaging someone or something part of its effects? In this case, for Eldritch Blast, yes, you make an attack as part of its effect, which deals damage. True Strike, yes, you also make an attack as part of its effect, which deals damage. Booming and Green Flame Blade, same thing. As for Shillelagh, I would argue no. Damaging someone or something is not part of its effect. You only modify the damage of the weapon. Attacking is not part of the effect. As for Magic Stone, yes. Of course, you modify the pebbles, but as part of its effect, you or others can also throw them as a ranged spell attack to damage someone. So I absolutely believe Agonizing Blast works with Magic Stone. I think some of you might fight me on that, but we'll see. Anyways, the second question is related to its damage increase. You only add your Charisma modifier to that spell's damage rolls. What counts as a spell's damage rolls? I first thought that a damage roll either had to be from a weapon, from a spell, or some other ability, but nothing in the rules support this. Therefore, I think the damage roll simply has to be associated with the effect of the spell. Is this the case for Eldritch Blast? Yes. True Strike? Yes. Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade? Yes. Shillelagh? No. Magic Stone? Yes. So the only spell that I would say is not valid out of these is Shillelagh, as I do not think it is a Warlock spell that deals damage. If you disagree with some part of this assessment, I wouldn't mind seeing your opinion. But what really matters is what your table thinks. So talk to your table. Given my interpretation, I would say Eldritch Blast is your best choice for this invocation. Of course, you can pick it multiple times, but I don't think it's worth the benefit. If your party has summons like Tiny Servants or Skeletons, or bought some Hirelings or other NPCs, Magic Stone can be really good. They can throw the stones for you. That makes the Magic Stones a better choice than Eldritch Blast because there's more attacks. Well, unless you're super high level, but anyways. Rules as written, I would argue it's still your spell's damage rolls and your Warlock cantrip that deals damage when others throw a stone, which means Agonizing Blast would apply. But again, talk to your table about this. Regardless, I think Repelling Blast has a better value in an optimized party than Agonizing Blast. You should definitely pick both of them up. They're incredible invocations. I always pick both. Next is Eldritch Spear, which increases the range of your cantrips. Eldritch Blast already has a range of 120 feet. Do you really need more? It could increase the range of the shorter ones, but I don't think it's worth the investment. It is a good invocation, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think it's worth it. You've already got fantastic range. The two other options that are still limited to Eldritch Blast are Lance of Lethargy and Grasp of Hadar. Both of them are once per turn features that work on any creature no matter the size. They could be really good additions with Repelling Blast, but it really depends on the context and what you guys are doing. Let's say you have an archer in your party who uses the slow mastery, and you also have a wizard in your party who has Ray of Frost. If you have Lance of Lethargy here and you focus fire with the party, with focus fire, you guys can force a default kill with no resources. That's huge. As for the other one, that's just an extra way to get somebody into an AoE. I wouldn't sleep on these. These are very good. That was the cantrip options. Now let's talk about the pact options with the prerequisites. We're going to start with Pact of the Blade. You either create a melee weapon or bond with any magic one. With the changes to magic item crafting, you should basically always be able to get a magic ranged weapon that you can bond with. Or a melee one if you're using a melee. You are proficient with the weapon, you can use it as a spellcasting focus, deal damage that is unlikely to be resisted, and attack with charisma instead of its normal attributes. I think by itself, Pact of the Blade is an expensive option, but at level 1 it might be worthwhile to some as there aren't many valid options before level 2. To trail back to crafting magic items, I do believe improved Pact weapon has become nearly useless. A +1 weapon is uncommon. It takes 10 days to create one, and it only costs 200 gold. So I recommend just crafting for it. You can hire a hireling to help you out with it too. That halves the time. Then there's Thirsting Blade for extra attack with weapons, and later you get to upgrade with Devouring Blade for 3 attacks instead of 2. If you're gishing, these are auto picks obviously. Other than that, you're just better off casting your cantrips instead. On those builds where you use weapons a lot, like Gishing, Eldritch Smite is likely a better option first as a great form of Nova damage, as you most likely have extra attack through your multi-class already. This is a fantastic smite that auto-prones on a hit. And of course it deals extra damage. And finally there's Life Drinker, which also works as a damage boost. I don't think it's that good. Spending your hit dice is not worth it, but it is a damage boost. If you can fit it in, then go ahead, you know? I'm not fully opposed to this, but I do think you could just get a better option instead. Now let's look at Pact of the Tome. Some extra cantrips and 2 ritual spells that aren't really that beneficial, especially now that everyone gets access to ritual casting. One huge benefit we can get here is access to Find Familiar, but this is not the only way. Something worth mentioning is Book of Ancient Secrets. It didn't get a reprint, but it's still accessible through 2014 content. You can absolutely pick this with 2024 Warlock. And with this, you don't need to prep most rituals at all. And you can even add non-Warlock rituals as well. Phantom Steed would be a crazy one to get. As for Aspect of the Moon, it doesn't do a whole lot. If crafting counts as a light activity, then that's a completely different story. Then it becomes an S-tier invocation, but I don't know how many tables actually run it that way, so it's probably not worth picking this up. Talk to your DM about crafting magic items before picking this up. They might run it very differently. Farscribe is convenient, it can be really powerful in a diplomatic game, but that's very situational. And finally, Gift of Protectors. It seems nice. It sounds like a multi-target death ward, but it being disabled after anyone goes to 0 HP makes it suck. You don't have much control over who goes down first. And more often than not, going down doesn't mean death. That makes this invocation useless the rest of the day. You simply don't have enough control over this invocation to be able to use it to its fullest. If you could choose when to use the invocation, I would love it. Now for Pact of the Chain. Find Familiar has become quite a bit better in 2024. Not only do you have more options, but you can also see through the Familiar's eyes using a bonus action. If you have a bat, you can see through your teammate's Sleet Storm or Fog Cloud or whatever. That gives you advantage. An interesting indirect buff is through a change to Summon Undead. The Putrid option now paralyzes any poisoned target, rather than the target also needing to fail a Constitution saving throw. The Quasit, one of the familiar options, poisons on touch. It's quite a convenient way to meme on solo enemies, but almost everything does that anyways, like Focus Fire. So I still think Summon Undead is garbage. Expensive garbage is what I should say. Gift of the Ever-Living Ones is meh. It's definitely a lot better than what we had in the past because healing spells were boosted. As for Voice of the Chainmaster, it's become a lot less powerful. The biggest benefit of this previously was that you could use the blind sight of familiars. And this was without spending any actions. But now that Pact of the Chain got boosted so you could just use a bonus action, I think that's just enough, you know? I don't think investment of the Chainmaster is particularly worth it, but it makes your familiar a bit better and improves strategies like the one I described before. Hold Monster is usually way too expensive for it to be worth a spell slot. Chains of Carcery makes you able to use it whenever you want, basically. This is a decent option but comes very late, and it might not work too well in some campaigns. And lastly, we have Pact of the Talisman, which is stuck in limbo right now. I'm going to be skipping this because I go by rules as written. If you really want to use Talisman, talk to your DM. I'm like 99% sure they're going to allow everything. The Talisman invocations are incredibly tame. Now let's look at the invocations that give us an extra spell per day. Most of these invocations suck either because the spell is bad or it's just not enough. I'm going to list a bunch of them right now. Bewitching Whispers, Dreadful Word, Minions of Chaos, Mire of the Mind, Sign of Ill Omen, Thief of Five Fates, and Trickster's Escape. Sculptor of Flesh is a very good emergency button, and can potentially work through multiple encounters. Undying Servitude is pretty handy too. A skeleton archer on the field is always handy. Gift of the Depths works a bit differently. It also gives you more than just an extra spell. This is only useful for underwater campaigns, really. Now let's look at the remaining 2024 invocations. We're gonna start off with the best one. Gaze of Two Minds is the best invocation in the entire game. What an insane pick for Warlocks. This solves Warlock's biggest problem, and that is squishiness. You're almost invincible in combat if you put this on a friend and cast spells from their space. You could just sit behind cover and chill. If you're in a dungeon, you don't even need to be inside the battle room. That's crazy broken. In some cases, the enemies don't even know that you're here. You do need to stay within 60 feet of your friend though, but that still makes things incredibly hard for enemies to get to you. But still though, it's quite finicky with your friend's position though. It's easier to use a Find Familiar. The problem is they're quite squishy though, but Imp can become invisible, so there's that. And it also flies. This invocation is super broken. It's definitely an auto pick. I really hate this invocation though. Imagine having this invocation and Phantom Steed. You're set for life. Eldritch Mind is fantastic, it secures your concentration, but I do recommend you get Warcaster instead and then ditch Eldritch Mind. Devil's Sight is an incredible way to see enemies while they cannot see you. There's lots of enemies that don't have dark vision of 120 feet. That means they can't see you. That means you have advantage. Assuming you're far away, of course, with your Eldritch Blast. If your party builds around the Darkness spell, then this becomes mandatory for everybody. This can be potentially better than Gaze of Two Minds, but most people don't build around darkness. With the way invisibility was buffed, one with shadow can be a great way to basically guarantee advantage on initiative. And there's tons of other benefits as well. I wouldn't sleep on this. And then finally, lessons of the first ones. I don't think it's too amazing. Right now, there's only 4 origin feats that are super amazing. And if you go human, you get to pick 2. And of course, you're going to pick 2 of the best ones. If you're playing another species like a Dragonborn, then maybe this will be worth it. But I don't know, I'm a little bit skeptical here. If my party's really good with shutdowns, and I don't have alerts by level 5, then I might actually pick this. The niche with Armor or Shadows is gone because Abjuration Wizard was changed. That means this is basically worthless. The 8 HP from Fiendish Vigor is basically nothing. Mask of Many Faces is probably my favorite invocation. In a diplomatic or infiltration game, this can be very powerful. Even in a heavy roleplay game, this can be very significant. But if your games are not like this, then I don't recommend this. Misty Visions is not really useful on a Warlock. It is for an Illusion Wizard, but 2 levels is a deep investment. And this does not work with Illusory Reality anymore. That was patched. Depending on how your DM runs illusions, this is either really powerful or completely useless. So talk to your DM about how they run illusions. That's really important before picking this. This is my second favorite invocation ever. It's just pure fun. Otherworldly Leap is a lot better now. I see myself picking this. This invocation basically gives you plus 20 foot movement. Having a mount is still just better, but I do think this holds significant weight. It's a fantastic backup. Ascending Step is a joke compared to Otherworldly Leap. Master of Myriad Forms is similar to Mask of Many Faces. Mask of Many Faces is more than enough. Whispers of the Grave is an interesting one and probably deserves a video, but it's not insane. Visions of Distant Realms is a fantastic scout tool. Witch Sight is pretty good. 30-foot True Sight. That's everything. Now let's look outside the player's handbooks. First, let's talk about Tuma Levistus. Outside of Gaze of Two Minds, Warlock is quite squishy. This can be incredibly useful in a pinch to save yourself from death. That's basically the only good one. The rest are pretty bad. Eyes of the Runekeeper. Look at it. Do I really need to say anything? Comprehend Languages is just a better pick for the party. Eldritch Sight and Beast Speech are basically worthless now that everyone gets to cast spells as a ritual. Beguiling Influence gives you some skill proficiencies, and you probably already picked these. And they're not really that useful to begin with. They're nice to have, but it's not worth an invocation. Maddening and Relentless Hex improves a spell that sucks. You're literally improving a dinky little 1d6 per hit damage spell. At level 5, you have Hypnotic Pattern. You should be throwing the big gun spells. Please don't be a redditor about this. Cast things that are actually good. Ghostly Gaze is kind of okay for scouting, but it's too expensive. I rate this bad. And finally, Cloak of Flies. It just doesn't do enough. And the party's gonna make fun of you because it looks like you smell like shit. That's all the invocations, or well, I hope that was all of them. Besides getting Eldritch Invocations through Warlock levels, Eldritch Adept is also a feat that exists in Tasha's. and it's a very valid option to this day, even though it wasn't reprinted. Because this wasn't reprinted, it didn't get any level gates or anything. That means you can pick this up at level 1. But Kobold, you can only pick an origin feat at level 1! There's no general rule that states this, actually. They specifically made it so that the new human species option and backgrounds are limited to origin feats. Custom lineage is still a valid option to this day, which can grant you access to Eldritch Adept from the get-go. Jeremy Crawford himself confirmed this to me. But still though, you might want to talk to your table in case they don't like it. I don't see why they wouldn't, but whatever. I do think this is quite significant on the 2024 Ranger because they can secure their concentration with Eldritch Mind early. Ranger is very feat starved and they have a concentration problem, so this helps quite a lot. Anyways, that's basically everything I wanted to say. I hope you learned something new. End of video. We hope to earn a follow on the Kobold and Gator Dice project on BackerKit. Thank you for watching. Bye bye!